Well, actually, Zelda's family tree is really easy because all the women in Zelda's family tree are all named, you guessed it, Zelda.
Zelda.
For some reason, they all named the girls in the royal family Zelda.
Now, what I'm seeing here, Damon, and this may
please.
be, now as I'm live fact checking you, is that it's actually the boy is called Zelda, and it's his legend.
Right. He also is the brother in Mario Brothers.
Right.
Luigi's unrelated entirely. It's Mario and Link are the brothers.
It's Mario,
Luigi's a close
and Zelda,
family friend.
and Zelda Mario.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
Okay, so this was it's not Game Boy. Super Nintendo? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't play Game Boy with the pea soup. I can't do that.
Oh, it's the green that does it for you? You can't handle it?
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, that's not what we're talking about. But yeah, I couldn't get into Game Boy as a kid because I thought I was like, why would I play this when I have a Nintendo and a Super Nintendo at home?
I definitely had a Game Boy at some point. Most of my Game Boy playing was at the orthodontist's office because they would let you check them out while you were waiting.
Oh, that's a nice system.
It was cool, but then you think about it and you're like, why are we waiting this long? Why? I mean, I know
You're turning into an 80s comedian in front of my eyes, but why don't you just schedule it when my appointment is?
I mean, I know we were children, so like any waiting is absolutely excruciating. But so what's the hook, man? What am I going to recognize from future Zelda games? I didn't come into Zelda until Ocarina of Time.
Right.
See episode where we talk about Ocarina of Time, but
so this one I think is, I mean, you had Zelda 1 and 2 for the NES, but this was really the moment where a lot of the tropes that you will probably recognize from Macaroni of Time got sort of solidified. Some might even say calcified. Where you have parallel worlds, just like you do in Ocarina of Time.
Ooh,
where you go,
I like that.
In Ocarina, you go back and forth in time. In this one, you go between actual like alternate dimensions. You have sort of the same beats, like the story beats, where you have 3 dungeons, something cataclysmic happens, and then you have more dungeons to go to after that. So it follows a lot of that same sort of nonsense that every game sort of iterated upon up until Breath of the Wild.
So is there...
Now, you get this. In this one, Zelda gets kidnapped. But you didn't see that one coming. Who did it?
By Ganon?
Ganon. Ganon did it.
Is it Ganondorf or Ganon?
This is the first time that you canonically see Ganondorf, but he is in pure Ganon form in this one.
Wait, what does that mean? I don't understand.
Dwarf is the man. Ganon is the pig demon thing.
So we see Ganondorf in this.
No, you don't see him. He is mentioned as Ganon, who used to be called Ganondorf. What have you. Yeah. But this was, I think, I might have mentioned this in our Ocarina episode, but when I was a kid, I thought video games were Mario Brothers. Because that was the first game we had. I was like, it's either shooting ducks or jumping over platforms. Right. And then my brother brought home the original Zelda for the NES, and it was in this gold cartridge. It looked really cool. But I think I was a little too young for it, and I was like, I don't think this is necessarily my... I surely attempted it 1,000 times, but probably couldn't get past like the 3rd dungeon. And
then Zelda 2, Back to the Streets. Really
right. That one, Zelda 2, The Squeakquel, that one was just so different from the original Zelda, and my brother and I, it was so obtuse and difficult that we just hopped off of that. I don't think we ever bought that one. We only just rented it.
What was that one called?
Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link.
Ah. Yeah, you don't hear about that one as much.
You do not. I would say for reasons.
Yeah.
There is some people who strongly defend it, but I would say it's not a terrible game. It's just frustratingly difficult. And so the good things that are in it, you never get to because you've already thrown your controller at the screen and you're not playing it anymore. You put Mario Brothers 3 back into the system and you're playing that now.
We got a Mega Man Metroid situation going on here.
But this one, I found renting it at my local Blockbuster, as many a 90s kid would have. And this is when I fell in love with Zelda. This was the one.
Okay. All right.
I think it had enough of a story that it was fun, had it doesn't have as an open world as the original Zelda, but has enough of an illusion of an open world that it felt like you were exploring around and having fun. Although, if you look back on it, it's a fairly linear story. But it's just, also, it holds up really well. I mean, I think just Super Nintendo graphics hold up pretty well in terms of just how they look today versus, like playing Ocarina of Time. I'm like, this game's kind of ugly and pointy. It's just a very cute looking game. It's very bright and fun, but also has a lot of that Zelda puzzle, endorphin rush that you get.
We were talking the other day. I don't remember who I was talking to, but like basically explained. I was explaining Breath of the Wild to someone, and then made the revelation to someone. I was like, Zelda games are they're mostly puzzle games. Like, there's a little bit of fighting, and there's more fighting now than there was. You know what I mean? Like, it depends on the game, but like, it's mostly puzzles, and it's just a really elaborate shell around fun little puzzles, and sometimes very frustrating puzzles, but usually fun.
Frustrating combat. Yeah, but I think I like. Yeah, there is that balance. I think there is a lot of combat in them, but that balance between puzzles and combat. I think because I've played puzzle games before and I like them fine, but there's nothing ever that makes me want to come back to them.
I need a little
Whereas
conflict.
With Zelda, I need something. I need something,
Yeah.
just a little, to take my little hat and hang it on the peg. That's all I need. I don't need elaborate lore. I don't need whatever the fuck's happening in Kingdom Hearts. I don't need that. I just need a little hey, this pig demon just showed up. Should we go fight him? I'm like, I really think we should. Well, we're going to have to get 8 from the places, and then we can go fight him. Like, makes sense. Now that you've said it that way, I guess we have to get them.
What an idiot I was for thinking I could just go directly fight the pigman.
I certainly need the pendants of virtue or whatever.
And then you also learn our favorite thing about Zelda games, the lessons, right? Where you're like in a dungeon, you get a thing, you immediately use the thing. Mm-hmm. So you're like, what am I going to use this for? Oh, to shoot that eye. That's why I got this bow.
This man has an eye, and he kept the only thing that can kill the eye in his castle. Room next to him. This one doesn't go that hard into that. I think that really, there is a little bit of that one, but that really got, I think, solidified in Ocarina, where it was like, and some people criticize that, and I think story-wise it is a plot hole, but there is something very satisfying.
Oh, I love it.
Of like, the hook shot, and this he's got a weakness to, big pointy hook shotty things. Of course, it makes perfect sense. I remember playing Twilight Princess with you, and I was like oddly resistant to the idea of using the item I just got 10 minutes earlier, and you were like, why don't you just shoot him with the arrow? I'm like, DJ, you just don't get it, dude. And then I would, and I'm like, of course.
I have to go through my whole bag, try every weapon that I've used priorly, and
this one also has a twist in it, and I don't know why I didn't see it coming when I was a kid. I'm actually curious.
Don't tell me what the twist is. I don't know. Okay.
But I didn't see it coming as a kid, and I really fell for it, even though in retrospect, I'm like, why would I not have seen this coming? So I'm curious.
Is it that Ganon is Link's dad?
Ganon's actually, it's a looper thing where
Ganon is Link.
Ganon is Link from the future, and
that's why Link had to wear
that
weird makeup, and like they kind of made his.
But
jaw.
Link had to get like weird eyebrows to sort of match. Yeah, it's terrible.
Okay, we're gonna play The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. We're gonna probably play it on Switch, right? On the.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I'd have to check with Smithsonian and see if I can get my Super Nintendo, and I have to use the white gloves, and I could only do it in the back room there with the Smithsonian. It's a whole to do. I don't think
we have a regular Nintendo, but I don't think we even have a Super Nintendo anymore. There was one kicking around, but I don't know. If we do, maybe I'll play it on.
They did put that Switch in them after 20 years. They start kicking around, and you're like, oh god, that thing's sentient. Get it? That's nothing.
I don't care for that visual. It's kind of scary. We're going to play A Link to the Past. We'll be back after this.
Goodbye. Bye, four of you.
Do you want to describe the tiers of our Patreon page while I sing the Zelda song in the background?
describe the tear, like their sobbing tears. You've already started, so I'll go on the sobbing tears. I want to tell our patrons that I'm sorry for that thing that happened to you. You know what I'm talking about. With your uncle. Maybe he died. Maybe he was inappropriate, but sorry about the tears. Sorry about what happened. Again, can't stress it enough. We're here for you. Don't reach out though. We're not licensed therapists, so.
When I said tears, I maybe should have clarified.
Like a tear garden in Germany, like a levels.
Yeah. Steps.
What are the tears?
Well, if you give $1 per episode, Damon, you can get your name in the written credits, which people are really regretting about now.
Because of the thing I mentioned about their uncle.
$5 per episode, we'll read your name out loud with our voices. And up from there, you get a drawing by Damon, a song by me. You can, I don't know, you give enough, you can be get a guest spot on the show.
Whoa.
We haven't really talked about that. It's a high demand item. I don't know what the dollar amount for that is.
Would it be possible that they roomed with me for 2 to 3 years prior to guesting on the show, so I know that we have like a rhythm?
Or they went to college with me. So far, that is our for our guests. That has been our main. Those are our 2 main requirements.
So if you could do those and pay the amount needed, that would be ideal.
Patreon.com/YourInnerChild'sIdeal. That was stupid.
Agreed.
I don't remember the dungeon song. Can you sing the dungeon song?
Which dungeon would you be talking about?
They were all kind of jams. I'm thinking specifically of I think it was the penultimate dungeon. This is going great.
Yeah, this is minor key dungeon song. Sign me up.
Okay, so this is a video game. Already hard to recap.
Whoa.
What?
Go ahead. No, I'm just kidding.
Spoiler that it's a video game? Is that what you're fighting
let's slow
back
down.
against?
Let's make sure that people log off. Let's put a timestamp on the thing to make sure that no one gets any spoilers they didn't sign on for.
Okay, so we're going to be talking about the whole game. So
Thank you.
like me, you thought you were done halfway through, buckle in because there's more. But I'm definitely
I don't know
gonna
why
need
you
your
didn't.
help
I know that
when
you research these episodes, and I know you do a thorough amount of research, much like you do
I'm in the
for
library.
QAnon. When you're doing QAnon research, you also do our show research.
I'm doing microfiche.
You should have seen. You should have seen that the tagline for the game is "When you think it's over, it's only just beginning." When you were looking at the microfiche ads in the newspaper,
it's old.
I don't know
it's
how
like instead of
ads
newspapers.
worked.
Instead of newspaper, it's old like Nintendo Powers that I'm just searching
You're
through.
right
with
next
the
to
little
Clarice
dials.
Starling as she's going through the FBI's database.
Okay. I'm going to need you to recap this because I have no idea what's going on in this game other than, use item, poke enemy, warp around, be a bunny.
Which in Japanese, that translates to The Legend of Zelda. It just sounds like English words. I'll, like any frat bro, I'll start with the pregame, and then I'll get into the actual game story.
Sure.
The game, before the game starts, Ganon infiltrates the Sacred Realm where the Triforce lives, which is some sort of artifact.
Now you say before the game starts. We're not seeing any of this.
No.
Okay,
You're not going to be seeing this because it's only in the pages of your manual. You don't have to worry. Close your eyes. Feel free to be whisked away.
Okay. The power of fiction.
He infiltrates the Sacred Realm, which is a sort of parallel world where the Triforce lives, which is this divine artifact that grants wishes. Yeah, you see it now.
Yeah.
When he infiltrates, there's 7 sages lock him in there and prevent him from escaping. Yada, yada, yada. Hundreds of years go by. And he's trying to escape, possibly. The Hyrule that you and I both know is infested with droughts. And Wizard comes out of nowhere and says, hey, I can fix your problems. And he does. And the king's very pleased. But then the king, shortly out thereafter, dies. And the wizard starts collecting all the descendants of these 7 sages that locked Ganon in this alternate universe. Okay. And that, my friend, is where our game begins.
With
you, DJ, I don't know what you named yourself. Do you remember what you named yourself?
Squeege.
Squeege gets a telepathic message from Zelda, and he finds his uncle has gone to the castle, and he goes to he gets a telepathic message from Zelda saying, "Come save me in the castle. All the descendants of the sages are dead."
So wait,
he goes to the castle, finds his uncle dead.
Wait. Before we even start, Zelda is not. First of all, Zelda's not the boy.
No, I just said his name was Squeege. Didn't you hear? Didn't you hear that? That's canon.
I feel like
his name is Squeege.
You know, I don't mean to fight you on this, but I'm pretty sure Zelda's the boy. Also, you're telling me Zelda is not only is Zelda the princess, but also Zelda is captured in this game.
As you probably remember from any discussion of historical events, princesses are constantly getting captured as some sort of diplomatic trade negotiations, usually between nation states.
This is
you
why
usually want to capture the princess first, then negotiations begin.
This is why the queen has those guys with the hats now.
Because they guard all the princesses so that turtle, demons or pig demons or whatever demons you might have, mother brain demons, I don't know, don't kidnap your various princesses. Good rule of thumb, have more than one princess. Follow the Star Wars rule.
But I want to point out, Metroid does not apply to this particular
Whoa. That's
trope.
Interesting that you just, because Metroids are just some sort of jellyfish aliens, you don't assume they have heads of state.
The hero's name of Metroid is Metroid. Everybody knows it.
Anyway, yada, yada, yada. You save the princess temporarily. You take her out of the castle. You have to go call it a day. Some person sends you on a quest to find 3 pendants. You get those.
What do I need those for?
Okay. Yeah. I guess I already saved the princess. I'll get your pendants just to put a little, bookend on it.
I had the rest of my day free.
Because I saved her so early, I could just go ahead and get these pendants. And you go and fight that evil wizard, Aghanim. And right before you're about to defeat him, Agamemnon, you get sucked in the dark world, and then you have to go do 7 more dungeons.
What?
Bad news. 7 more dungeons. Save the descendants of those sages, and then you have to defeat Agamemnon again. Then you defeat Ganon.
Yeah.
Bully on you.
Well done.
And then you touch the Triforce, and you make a wish, and all the things that Ganon did were reversed. Your uncle's back to life. The king's back. All your favorites are back. And, the mutton is nice and lean. So perky.
It's okay. So
any questions in there?
Yeah, might as well get into the story
Gandalf is a Maiar spirit, which means he's essentially a demigod.
I thought,
and Sauron and Ganon are also Maiar spirits, so that's interesting, don't you think?
Okay, so now you're mixing fantasy worlds, or is that true? I have no idea what's true.
That's
because
false.
None of it is true.
But they are all Sith Lords. All of them are Sith Lords. Okay. It's also important to note.
So, okay, this was originally Super Nintendo, so there's actually a lot of story for a Super Nintendo game, but
all things considered, yeah,
there's a lot of just get the thing and then go do the thing, right?
Go get this thing and take it to this other thing, and then you'll have the thing done. Oh, more things. Go get those things, please.
Use that thing.
But this time you're done. Get this last thing. You're good.
This is all. This is a lot of tchotchkes and MacGuffins.
Bric-a-brac. A lot of magical bric-a-brac.
Knickknacks.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of that. But okay, so Aghanim, he is...
There's a lot of wayward H's in the names in this game. I just want to say that was one of my problems. But Aghanim has an H in there, an extra H where you didn't think there would be an H.
Because you're Aghanim. Aghanim. That's not how it's spelled. So how is Aghanim related to Ganon?
I always took it. I mean, Ganon, when you fight him in the final battle, he says, "You defeated my alter ego." So I assume he is just Ganon in wizard drag.
And Ganondorf is...
Yeah.
I thought that was human form Ganon, but somebody said Ganondorf in this game. And then I got real confused.
Yeah, I don't know if it's established in this game, but you're right. I think in later games, it's fairly clear that when he is in a human form, he is Ganondorf. When he becomes this pig demon, he is Ganon. And they do refer to this thief who broke into the sacred realm as Ganondorf. His last name is Dragmire. From the Cabot Cove Dragmires, I assume.
Ganondorf Dragmire.
Okay. Ooh, when I was in college, I used to do Dragmire. It's not a fun scene.
I just think they should be better at lip syncing, if that's the whole thing. I enjoy the outfits. But you
also have to do it in the swamp. You can't do it on stage. You always have to be in a mire-like setting.
Okay. All right.
I think you are right that his human form, but this game doesn't establish that he has a human form. You only see him as a pigman.
Later, yeah. So I want to make clear, I'm not asking you to answer for this, but I do know you know this much more.
It's feeling like the Watergate hearings in that I also have a very wide tie on. And
sir, I know Ganondorf. And you are no Ganondorf.
I won't correct you that didn't happen during Watergate.
I know, but it's some historical shit, you know?
Some old white man said it to another moderately old white man. Isn't that close enough?
I mean, yeah, for me. Okay, so the other missing girls they mentioned, those are the descendants? Like the people that you're saving in the...
Yeah, generations ago, these 7 sages trapped Ganon, and now he's gathering the descendants, who all happen to be ladies. Feminism, hashtag feminism.
Yeah.
Women can also be kidnapped and trapped in crystals. Sorry to bust your worldview right open, DJ, but women can also be trapped in crystals. They're all the descendants of these wise men. Okay. Or wise sages, or whatever they're called. What else you got for me? Lay it on me. This does feel like a retread of our Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
what else you got?
Well, and it's like unlike the Lord of the Rings, which obviously is different because it's a narrative situation.
Because it was planned out ahead of time.
Well, yeah, and it's like the thing is like it's not very important that you understand this. You know, like go somewhere, find a thing, fight the thing. You probably need to use one of those things to do, like we said before.
Right. You don't need to know which one's the Triforce of Courage. You just need to know what A does when you hit it.
Right. Yeah.
It's more important.
I'm just interested in it because I think this is pretty convoluted, but also very involved and interesting. I didn't realize, I guess, I don't know if is this the third? Which Zelda game is this?
Yeah, it's the third game. So there's the 2 on the NES, and this is the third one.
So I guess I don't know how much of this came from other games, but I didn't realize how much of Ocarina of Time came from this.
That is one of always. I think I mentioned this in the intro. That's always one of my pet peeves. Is like, I think Ocarina of Time deserves a lot of credit, but then sometimes people will be just raving about things that Ocarina of Time does, and I'm like, that was also done in Link to the Past.
Yeah, it's actually really, I mean, I think they definitely, I don't know, broke it open, and there's obviously a lot more narrative elements because they had more bits.
They got more bits and bytes. That's how you get those story beats in there.
But they had, what else? I mean, there's the Zora, there's, what's the mountain?
The Zora actually are from the Zora, which are a river water enemy in this game. They are actually from the first game as well. I think they just decided in Ocarina of Time that, hey, we want a friendly, water creature, humanoid,
why not use that?
And we'll just take the Zora and make them that.
And they kind of built on that for the other ones. Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, they are in this.
There's a Lionel. There's Lionels in this.
Yeah, there are Lionels.
I had never seen
also from the first game. They are also in the first game, yeah.
I had only I guess seen it is maybe not the right word, but only recognize it from Breath of the Wild.
Yeah. I mean, that was their big I mean, I was really pleased when Lionels were in Breath of the Wild because they had sort of been like a forgotten enemy from old Zelda games, and they got sort of resurrected, and then not only resurrected, but like made
badass
awesome in Breath of the Wild, to the point that they still scare me when I encounter them. They just stare back at you in Breath of the Wild.
Oh, terrifying.
Absolutely mortifying. Oh, I'm just a passerby, sir. Please, half man, half lion, half horse. Please don't
Too many
me.
halves.
He's 150% being.
Plus, Lionel wrote Dancing on the Ceiling, so you gotta...
you gotta give him. Yeah, I mean, I don't appreciate that he's slashing me with that giant club, but
but all night long is the jam.
Absolutely. And the Commodores are nothing to sneeze at either. Come on,
absolutely. Easy like Sunday morning in Kakariko Village. That was the original title. Okay, so am I saying that right? Is that Kakariko?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much.
I don't think I've ever said that out loud. What a
Kakariko.
Challenge.
No H's though. Gotta hand it to them there.
I forgot about Sahasrara. Who is Sahasrara?
More H's though.
Sahasrara is the good. Who's he? Because he seems.
He is.
The music made him seem friendly, but he was not.
No, he was nice. When you rescue Zelda at the beginning of the game, she tells you to seek out Sahasrara in Kakariko Village, but he's already. When you get to Kakariko, he's escaped, which is a fun story beat, I feel like, for a Super Nintendo game. One of the things I think, even though this story is really convoluted, I think the game does a good job of like creating environmental storytelling elements. So when you get to Kakariko Village, it has that Kakariko theme that you've heard in Ocarina of Time and other games. But you also, he's missing, and you have to like sort of talk to all the townspeople to sort of find out where he went. And some of the townspeople don't like you because there's signs all over the place saying you kidnapped Princess Zelda. Yeah. So a few of the townspeople will either run from you or will call the guards to
or both.
Arrest you, which is kind of a fun little bit, because it generally is like kind of a nice safety hub, at least in the first part of the game. But there is a little bit of like this threat. Slightly.
There's enemies all over the place in this game. Like when you're a noob and don't have a lot of hearts, like it's challenging just to like walk up the street because you're. I will say one of the more frustrating things about this game is the slashing mechanic. Just especially if you're not used to it, you have to get it just right, and he has a tendency to just. I remember this. This came back to me from whether it was this game or some other Zelda game, in the like 2D environment where it just like turns the wrong way really easily, and you're like slashing at nothing while enemies like coming at you, and then you feel like there are enemies that unless you're perpendicular to them, or like not perpendicular but you're exactly facing them, you like can't slash them because it's like you got to get it just right, and I found that very frustrating at first, and I think that's. Very true to a lot of things in like older gaming systems. So right. I'm not gonna knock the Switch for that because I just like this feels like playing it on Super Nintendo because
I've heard
this
that.
rage seething inside of me feels familiar.
I've heard that. I actually listened to a few other because I love this game so much that it's hard for me to be unbiased. So I listened to a few other like retrospectives on it. And that was something I had heard from a few other people, that sometimes that when they're slashing, they can change directions or something weird. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I've already like just in my, like when I'm playing the game, I automatically correct for that or something.
You just built it in.
I already auto just fix it through, phantom mechanics or whatever. But what I mean, the weird thing about this game is that in the light world, there are a lot of Zelda games. I mean, the first two Zelda games are full with monsters, but in this game, for the most part, in the light world at least, it's all soldiers.
Right.
It's all humanoid soldiers that you've been told have been brainwashed, and then you're killing. Yeah. And they all have shields and a sword for the most part. And if you hit them the wrong way, this is the part that does frustrate me when I'm playing. Is that if you hit them the wrong way, you will bounce off their shield and you won't be able to hit them. So you have to like take into account. I mean, it adds a little bit of strategy. I mean, the combat is not that complex in this game, but it does add a little bit of like, I've got to think this through. I can't just slash at him willy-nilly because I'll just hit his shield over and over again.
Well, and some of them have, like, they will shoot spears or have arrows that they shoot projectile at you. And if you're facing forward, it bounces off your shield. But if you're, like, slightly at an angle or anything, they can hit you with it really easily. Yeah. And it'll block your projectile if you shoot something at them, which is, I thought that was a fun mechanic. But yeah,
it is a fun mechanic. I mean, like, the mathematical odds of actually hitting an arrow when an arrow's coming
don't
at
worry
you,
about that too
but
much.
Still, no, yeah, I do like that. I will say the slash, I mean, I play the original and I occasionally will dip into Zelda 2 until I realize, oh right, no, I hate this. But all the attacks in that are stabs. There are no slashes in those games. You are just stabbing forward. And even in Zelda 2, your sword is very like
pokey,
tiny. It seems like you're just taking a butter knife to everyone. But that was, I think, an interesting innovation in this game that you actually slash. So you actually have a little bit more control over what you hit, or it's a little bit more of like a grace area that you, when you're slashing, you might hit.
What's a more fun animation too? Like it looks
true,
like a sword. You're swinging a sword around. While we're talking about swords,
swords.
Man, I remember this. I must have played this game, or maybe watched like you play it. Because
also a possibility. I think I play it at least once a year, all the way through.
Or it could be another Zelda game that I'm thinking, but like the mechanic of having the projectile from your Master Sword, like when you get that when you have full hearts.
Oh yeah,
that's so great. I like got so sad every time I'd lose a heart, because it's like, oh, that's so cool. You're just like, you don't have to switch to like an arrow or waste your arrows, and you can.
It is kind of nice. It's cool. Also, I mean, because you have the Master Sword, and right after you get it, you go to the Dark World, where the difficulty curve, I feel like, spikes.
Yes.
Like, enemies are just taking, like, loads of hearts off you if you just graze against them going through a corridor. But I think it is also nice because the Master Sword that you get is really just an upgrade from your original sword, but they add this beam thing that gives it a little bit more like story heft. You're like, this thing shoots lasers out of it?
Yeah.
Which makes it kind of cool.
It is the Master Sword.
It must be. What other sword could possibly shoot lasers out of it? No, it is a nice element when you don't have to use up your arrows or whatever else you might have on hand.
I have to say that I was going to get into because then you upgrade it later, and that's even more fun because it doesn't really, I don't think, does it change anything? It does. It just like takes a lot more damage. It's just a lot more powerful.
It does. I mean, you can upgrade it twice after, after you get the initial Master Sword. You can get it tempered by some dwarven blacksmith brother. After you rescue his brother. I know you're saving the world, but my brother went missing. If you could keep an eye out for him.
Have you seen my chicken?
And then later at the end of the game, you can visit a fairy who will upgrade it to its final level, which is very nice. And that was one of the things I had a lot of memories that struck me as I was playing it this time, and that was one that hit me. I knew I had to visit the fairy to get silver arrows, which are of course the only thing that'll defeat Ganon. But I think I spent some time in that little fairy fountain and just threw everything I had in my inventory into the fountain. And I was like, well, I mean, she wouldn't do anything to my sword, or would she? And I threw my sword in there, and she gave me a better sword. So that was one of those like few discoveries that I was like, oh, look at that.
Well, I have to be honest.
Got a sweet ass sword.
Two things happened when I was playing this game. I got to a point where I was already using a guide because
you've got things to do.
Well,
you can't
that's
just be.
I just felt like I was like, I saw how much. What happened was, until I made it to the not even the halfway point, but when you get the 3 pendants, I was basically just, if I got lost, stuck or something, I'd look it up. But generally speaking, I was just kind of going through the game. But after that point, it got a lot bigger and a lot more complicated and a lot more, dangerous with the enemies, as you mentioned. And I was like, all right, we're gonna record in a few days. I don't have that much time to spend playing this game. I am like, I'm into it, but I'm also like, all right. And so I started like looking at a walkthrough, and then about halfway through the game, It lost my progress completely.
Yeah.
And like, not completely, because it didn't start me completely over. I don't know exactly what happened, because I wasn't saving the way I should. So it's definitely on me, but it's also, that shouldn't have happened. So I don't know exactly what happened, but I was very frustrated, and I quit the game. And I was like, I'm just going to watch a video walkthrough. And then I did, and then I was like, all right, I'm ready to play. So I did like both. I was texting this earlier today as I was finishing. I was like, I would watch a walkthrough on like double time and then joylessly do the actions that the person
robotically do what they did,
which was still pretty challenging because the enemies get wacky. But I do, if this would be like, I would be playing this for a couple more months if I didn't do that. And I have definitely never beaten this before. I know that I feel like I've played it now. I didn't remember it before that I played this, but like having done the mechanic, I either played one that was very, very similar or I actually played this, but I definitely didn't get this far because it was like, what is all this? This is crazy.
Well, I remember we were at a pool party celebrating Memorial Day, and I think you had just gotten into the Dark World like that day or the day before, and
yes.
You were like, I thought it was over, and then it wasn't over. Yeah. I'm like, yeah.
Which is awesome. Like, if we weren't like trying to record, I would have been like, oh, fuck yeah. Like, there's so much more.
Come on.
Yeah, but this time I was like, oh, I thought I like had wrapped this up. And,
I mean, it is funny in retrospect that twist worked on me because your inventory is like a third full.
It's not even...
And like, it's not even... They don't populate full rows when it fills up. It's like dotted all through your inventory.
Yeah.
There's like a bomb up here, a boomerang over to the right, like a magic powder down in the corner. Like, it's obvious that this thing's going to be filled up. But like 11-year-old me is like, oh, I can't wait to beat the game this afternoon.
Yeah.
I had a very strong accent when I was a kid. And it's ludicrous that I even thought I was about to beat the game when I went to beat Agony.
Yeah. I should have known better. I think in my head I must have been like, well, they already did the fake ending, like the fake. Obviously the saving Zelda is like the first thing you do, so it's pretty obviously that's not tricking anyone. But I was like, they already did that. They're not going to do that again. It's maybe what I was thinking, but it was like, oh yes.
I do. I mean, the older I get, the more I do appreciate that little. I mean, it's sort of a fake out, but it's also sort of just like what's the word I'm looking for? It's sort of like destroying the trope of like, instead of the whole game you're trying to find Princess Zelda, you save her in the first 5 minutes of the game, or the first 15, 20 minutes of the game.
It's flipping the script, man.
It's fun, and it also like. I mean, Zelda, I feel like, is always, as a game series, really torn between, well, we got to have a woman be kidnapped at some point. I mean, this is a video game. How else would you raise the stakes?
How else would you motivate your main character?
By taking away a woman's agency. That's how you make video games. Yeah. That was my Shigeru Miyamoto impression just then.
Spot on.
But... I feel like this is interesting because it at least makes an attempt. I feel like Zelda games are always trying to make an attempt to... They're making a valid attempt to try and make Zelda into a character. And then they always cave to, and then she gets kidnapped. Even if she's been like saving the day the entire time, like in Ocarina of Time, the minute she reveals she's Zelda, then we're going to kidnap her.
Right.
But in this game, I do appreciate the
She's
attempt,
this badass
even
warrior,
not,
but still.
But she still gets trapped in a crystal yet again in Ocarina of Time. But in this one, I mean, you do encounter her and you have like some sort of relationship as much as the memory would afford in a Super Nintendo game. Like you meet her and rescue her, so you already have some sort of perceived relationship with her at the beginning of the game, which is kind of fun. And you can go visit her, in that first third of the game before you're sucked into the Dark World, and she'll say, whatever they programmed her character to say at you. I think she says, "Go find all the pendants." That's all she'll say at you. But now I do appreciate
over your head
that
for the whole world to see. It's good for business. That's not her. That's not her. But I really like
that's not her. That's a different guy. But I do like that attempt to sort of like subvert the tropes of even already like in the third game in a series. It's like making an attempt to play that role of just like, well, what if you save the princess early on?
Yeah. What if we do, I don't know, something else? Can you imagine in the writer's room, everybody's like, something else?
The writer's room.
What do you mean something else? So more lore stuff. Okay, so he's
Don't
part
do this
of
to me. Don't make me into the lore guy. But actually, I love being the lore guy.
You're the
Go
lore
ahead.
guy. Come on.
Please.
Okay, what's with the royal bloodline stuff? So he's heir to the Hylian dynasty or something. I feel like...
I mean, I think this is only part of this game.
Yeah.
I think there is a... Just like you sort of have the heirs to the sage's bloodline, he is the last of the knights of Hyrule. They don't really go into it. They're like, oh, you must be one of the, the heirs to the knights of Hyrule. And I'm like, that means nothing. Okay, whatever.
Yeah, what is...
Because they have a standing army. They have all these soldiers I'm literally killing left, right, and center are soldiers. So
are they not the knights?
They're soldiers. So I mean, what are the knights of Hyrule? What's the difference? I think it's just fantasy gobbledygook.
Okay, all right. I get Hyrulean and Hylian mixed up. So mad.
So I'm mad at myself for knowing the answer. I believe Hylian is a race. At least in later games, it's established that Hylians are the race, so the sort of the human-looking race in Hyrule, and Hyruleans are all the people who live in Hyrule. So that could be all the other
Hyrule
races.
is our whole thing, right?
Yeah, Hyrule is the land, and Hylian is the race of human-like people that live there. But there's also Zoras, and in later games there are Gorons.
Now, who are the
fairies. Dwarfs? Yes, the Connecticut Dwarfs.
Well, and,
I already did that joke with the Dragmire thing, so I can't.
That's all right. It was a hit. Bring it back. When
it's called a callback. Look it up.
In Ocarina, Ganondorf he's a male of the
Gerudo.
The Gerudo. Yeah. We hadn't gotten there yet, so they did do something.
We don't got those yet. We don't got them Gerudos yet. We don't have the technology to have Gerudos yet.
They have the little chain boys from Mario. You
got those little chain chomps.
Yeah.
In this game, they will do the same thing that they usually do, which is notice you're there and attack you.
Yeah. Well, fair enough.
How did you feel?
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that last dungeon was fucking wild.
Was that Turtle Rock?
Is that the last one?
Or do you mean Ganon's Tower?
I think Ganon's Tower is what I'm thinking.
Ganon's Tower is the what have we learned dungeon.
You have to use like everything a lot.
Yeah. And you have to defeat like half of the bosses you've already defeated.
Yeah.
And they're just like in rooms, just like, hey, I'm just a normal guy now. I used to be in charge of that tower 4 hours ago. Now I'm just in the room to the left.
I was a manager before.
Come at me.
Now I'm not even, I'm a floor supervisor. Honestly, I appreciate the stress is a little lower. So I appreciate that.
Look, Ganon, I think he made a lot of good points. I don't think I was ready for the responsibilities yet. I mean, there's a lot of like doing, timesheets. I'm just, scheduling breaks. I can't do that. I got a lot of monster stuff to do up here. I was guarding a pendant. You came and took the pendant. I'm not mad. I'm not mad. I mean, I know it was a 50-50. You're either going to take the pendant or I'm going to kill you. I mean, I know. It's just sort of,
you have to pick
this
one.
is what we signed up for, I'm not mad at you for doing your job. I hope you're not mad at me for doing my job.
Plus now, I get to share tips, so I actually make more money now. So, the whole floor, we split the tips.
Yeah,
any rupees you don't pick up,
when
we split them.
When the hero comes in, I mean, people... You want you to give 15, but I mean, it's kind of going 20% now. It's kind of the way it's going. Like if you did it on the app, if you did it on the app, you would have already automatically been set up for 20%. But whatever you do, there's a jar in the corner. God bless.
God bless. I don't know why God bless after all that. That's what got me.
I like that he's just a religious man.
He's just,
he's a religious giant worm that infests the top of a tower somewhere.
Does that ever get you? Like, I think I hear it less now than ever before. But I'll be like, hey, yeah, okay, thank you, and leaving someone there, be like, have a blessed day or something like that. And I'm always like,
don't rope me into your blessings.
I mean,
it used to annoy me a lot
I appreciate
more
it
when I was an angry teen. It used to annoy me a lot more.
I'm a nice atheist, Damon.
But I don't got anything for that. What do you want from me with the blessings?
You were going to ask me before I busted in about how hard the final dungeon of this difficult game was. Hot take, DJ. Good job. You were going to say something that was actually pertinent.
I was just going to ask you, what did you think of the graphics? Like, how did you think the Super Nintendo graphics held up?
I thought it was good. It's not like you don't come to this expecting, something detailed. I like it was. I fairly recently played the what's it called? The one that was reissued for the Switch.
The Link's Awakening one.
Yeah, and so the mechanics are very familiar because it's basically just reskinned like mechanics, and it's like they put like a 3D spin on the 2D game, like basically just like tilted the screen a little bit.
Right. Yeah.
And I like that a lot, and that looks amazing. But I didn't play this and go, well, this looks like shit. You can tell what. There's things like the Lionels, which you've seen in extreme detail in something like Breath of the Wild, where it's kind of weird because you're like, is that a? But it doesn't really matter.
Chunky guy coming at me.
Is that a Great Dane?
Is that the Great Dane wearing an Edgar Winter wig? What is that? What's that now?
I want to take a free ride. So he.
Don't gender the Lionels.
I like when you get.
You don't know them.
Like you get turned into a bunny rabbit if you get the certain thing hit by the little whatever that is.
If you go into the dark world before you have the moon pearl, I mean, it's just simple logic. If you really think about it, that's just a thought you'd have walking down the street.
I feel like that none of that was really explained. I mean, you kind of understand because the first time you show up in the dark world, you're a bunny, you can't really do anything, and then later you get like hit by some beams or something, like a star. What is that? It's just like a star thing that comes around. And
there's like a little star enemy in the dark world that will hit you, and you'll turn back into that bunny. But
for a little bit.
There's the whole object that you get in the third dungeon before you get pulled into the dark world is this moon pearl, which is it's kind of a. I mean, story-wise, it makes sense, but it also feels like, could I get an actual item for this dungeon? Because it's not. It's just something you put in your inventory, and it stops you from what's the word I'm looking for? From transfiguring once you go into the dark world. Because everyone who goes in the dark world becomes a monster, which is story-wise makes sense. Everyone who you encounter in the dark world is a monster, including Ganon is a monster. So it almost feels like a placeholder in the level because it's just like you in the third level. In every other level, you get something that's more or less useful. In that one, you just sort of get this object that goes into your inventory. It's automatically turned on so that you don't transform when you go into the dark world, and you don't really have to worry about it ever again. So it's just kind of there.
Yeah.
In fact, you get an object right before you get into that dungeon, which is the magic mirror that
lets you
actually use, and it allows you to warp from the dark world back to the light world.
But only in certain spots.
Well, you can't. I mean, I think there's like limitations in the game itself. Like you can't warp on top of a bush or a tree or something. But you can't go back the other way. You can only go from the dark world to the light world.
Who says you can't go home? It's all right. That was actually from this game originally. Yeah, look, I'm just want to just for anybody who's like kind of vaguely listening but didn't actually do a playthrough or doesn't know this game intimately well. Let me just go through some items that you're gonna have by the end of this game. We've got
I love the items in this game. Go.
We got medallions. We got a Bombos medallion, a Quake medallion, an Ether medallion. We got the magic mirror, the magic cape, the cane of Birna, the cane of Samaria. We got the shovel, the book of Mudura. Mudora, not Medora. The flute,
Dora the Explorer,
which you took from Flute Boy. Magic hammer. You got the ice rod. You got the fire rod. You got the magic powder. You got the mushroom. You got the hook shot. You got the bug catching net. You got the magical boomerang. You got the regular boomerang. You got a bomb. You got a silver arrow. You got a regular arrow. You got bow. You got the lamp. You get the moon pearl. That's what you were just talking about. You got the Zora's flippers. You got the Titan's mitt. You get the power glove, not to be confused with the power glove. You got Pegasus.
Power glove TM.
You got the Pegasus boots. Actually, let's talk about the Pegasus boots for a second before I finish this list of the items. Love that. I love the Pegasus boots.
I love them, and I forget that you don't start the game with them whenever I replay the game. And I'm like, oh, right, I can't. Oh, I'm just walking everywhere. They are great. I mean, this isn't a huge overworld, and I would like to talk about the overworld in depth, or not in depth. Gross.
We don't have that much time.
It is nice to have that if you're going somewhere. Because fast travel isn't limited. I mean, there is some fast travel, but I mean, it is sort of limited and balanced. So it is nice to have this ability to look, I'm just trying to get west.
Let me just fight run. All 1,000 of you right now.
And you run, unlike what your mother asked you to, you run with your sword pointed outwards.
Yeah.
So you just kill guys as you're running. It's fun.
It's pretty fun.
And plus, there's traversal elements where if you run into something, you can... I've seen speedrunners run into something and get knocked backwards to get over pits they're not supposed to be going over yet.
Oh,
tricksy hobbits. I also love the Pegasus boots. I wrote them. I just wrote a list of items I love, and I wrote hook shot > boots ! And bottles. Bottles I feel like are also the low key because I don't think they're in the second game at all. And in the first game, you get medicine. The bottle is not particularly interesting. You just get medicine and presumably throw your bottle away. But in this one, you actually get a bottle and you can put a variety of things in. You can put potions in it or, and this is what I do all the time, put fairies in it and they will bring you back to life. That's how I am able to beat this game without ever properly dying because I die all the time and these fairies just bring me back. And every time I get out of a dungeon, I'm like, first things first, let's reload up on fairies. That wasn't going to be that's just, did you freeze up or are you just not laughing at my...
No, that's just
got an awkward stare.
That's the side of me trying to think of a gay joke, but I couldn't do it. We got...
You're too far gone. You're too far into gay acceptance. Sad,
Damn
in a way. I'm going to send you to a local high school and we're going to get you fixed up real quick.
Don't tell my bigoted uncle. Continuing
what
the
happened
costumes.
to that DJ? He used to be fagging and fairying all up in the air. But now he's all just so accepting, talking about the L's, the G's, the B's, and the T's.
Don't forget the Q plus the B.
Sometimes QQSIA plus.
We got the red mail, the blue mail, the green jerkin.
Sorry, yeah. Wait, what?
Don't call it a
Is
green
that what I'm
jerkin.
just normally wearing? The green jerkin?
Yeah.
It's weird. How is jerkin spelled? J or G?
Jerkin. Mirror shield, the fire shield, the fighter shield, which is your regular shield, your golden
shield.
sword, your tempered sword, master sword, and fighter sword. I was reading them backwards, obviously. You start with the fighter sword and then go up from there. That's
Makes
the
sense.
amount of items that we're talking about here. It's insane. There's so many tchotchkes.
So many tchotchkes, so many things to put on your shelf, maybe on a mantle. Some of them are completely optional.
Yeah.
And I think this game is before the era of, there's a boss in this dungeon. If you just go 2 rooms to the left, there's an item that is his only weakness. There are a few enemies in this that do have that, where I think there's one enemy that it is required to have the item that you get in that dungeon. I think there are a few that are weak to the item in that dungeon, but it's not required. But for the most part, it's just hit him with your sword. Find a way to hit them with your sword.
It's not. I would say this. It is not obvious at all. Some of the things. I was watching a walkthrough, so I'm like, oh, you just do this thing. But if I were just especially an 11-year-old playing this game, how the fuck do you figure some of this stuff out? That you have.
Which ones stuck out to you?
In some of the dungeons you can cut.
I'll pretend I don't know all the enemies' names.
Okay.
So I'll just play it cool.
you can like cut the like mossy branches, and if you like cut the right ones with the Master Sword, it like opens a door.
Oh yeah. In the forest dungeon, there's like vines on the wall.
Yeah, and then there's one where you have to stand in front of something and use something. I can't remember what it is.
Yeah, I remember. I think we all remember where we were when that happened.
Well, is it the entrance to the final castle? You have to like stand somewhere specific, and then like the mouth of the castle opens up or something. I can't remember what it is, but
well, that one. I mean, I feel like at Ganon's Tower is fairly. I always get this is a very Damon thing, but I'm always in a bad position whenever it happens because it's automated and the crystals just start going, and I'm always like halfway through a weird walk. My little sprite is in a weird walk. I'm like, no, I wanted to be facing it for like the moment. I'm like, I'm in a weird jostling position, and now the crystals are coming out. So that's fairly automatic.
No, that must not be the one I'm thinking of. I can't remember because I was
There's
watching.
A few. I've heard some people complain, like, there's 2 dungeons that you have to have those medallions to open.
Right.
And that can cause problems because there's nothing really prompting you to get those medallions.
Yeah.
So I would imagine if you didn't get them ahead of time, you would be really fucking annoyed when you got to that dungeon. There's a symbol you've never seen before on the top of those dungeons, and you're like, What the fuck is this? And then one of those medallions you get from like throwing a stone into a rock circle, and a catfish gives you a medallion that allows you to make earthquakes.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Get the fuck out of here. Yeah, I don't know how, like, if I didn't have a subscription to Nintendo Power or the Nintendo Power hotline on speed dial or nowadays a YouTube walkthrough, I have no idea how you would figure this shit out.
The Nintendo hotline of our era.
Yes. It's pretty wild.
Although, I mean, I will say there is some like pushback on the NES. What?
The what?
The NES obtuseness, which is like for example, like Ganon's fight is somewhat reminiscent of his fight in the original game. But in the original game, when you go into Ganon's chambre, he immediately goes invisible, and you just have to sort of stab in whatever direction you can until you hit him. Again, I want to reiterate, he is invisible. Like, it's needlessly unfair. Like,
yeah.
And then he'll freeze, and then you shoot him with his silver arrow. After you've hit him, invisible him 3 times. It's silly. And in this game, at least, like, you fight him for a little bit while he's completely visible, and then he's like, I'm going invisible now, but he'll shoot little, like, fire bats at you so you know where he is. So even if he is, like, referencing that old fight, it's a little bit more like your skill and not just, I hope I have enough hearts to stab at the air long enough to defeat him. So I feel like this game starts to curtail that weird NES cruelty and sometimes denseness of just like that fogginess of what the fuck do you want me to do?
And I think an asterisk of I watched walkthroughs to this next statement, but like I feel like the boss fights they were difficult, but they were not like some of them have been like this. I don't know how the fuck. Like, it seems impossible. You just have to figure out, like, because some of them, they do have some sort of specific weakness.
Right, I am a little torn because, I mean, as I said, like, some later games fall into the trap of, like, the item you get in this dungeon is the thing that you're going to use to defeat that enemy. And part of me is like, that's story-wise, that makes no sense. Why would you have this? Wouldn't you burn the bow and arrow
put it
so that I can't use it
far
to
away
defeat
as you possibly can at the very least? Put it on the other side of
Hyrule or
there you go,
Lake Hylia. On the other hand, though, there is like a sort of like narrative, like a patness. I guess I don't want to say that. There's something satisfying about like finding an item in a dungeon and then using it to defeat that enemy. There's something like, of course. It's like solving a little puzzle. And I think in my perfect world, there'd be like half of the bosses would be defeated by their item, the dungeon item, and then half would be just me slashing at them with a sword or having some sort of weakness, but it's not required to like there's that big dinosaur with the helmet.
Yeah.
And you get the hammer in that dungeon, and you can go up and hit him with that hammer, and his mask will start to crack. But you have to get like right up on him because it's a hammer.
Yeah,
you just literally are malleting at him.
It's a melee weapon.
Or you can pick up a bomb and throw it at him. But bombs, of course, are like you only have so many bombs. So which one do you want to do?
Plus you gotta time
I think
it
that's a
just
nice
right.
balance.
Yeah.
You have to time it right, and he's scurrying around like a fucking cockroach. Although he is like fucking, like in a way, like for a Super Nintendo enemy, that dinosaur is fucking awesome. Like takes up the entire room. Like you wonder how he survives because the room is just slightly bigger than him.
Imagine how big he'd be if you gave him a big enough aquarium. It's like a goldfish.
That's true. He just keeps getting bigger and bigger. But it is like some of the enemies in this game are really awesome, like in terms of just design and sprite work.
Plus, you get the most important aspect, which is we still get the tennis game with Ganon, which you got to have.
It started here, so I don't want to be too angry, but the later games have relied so much on shooting magic back at Ganon that I'm like, guys, stop it. Every other time, like, well, I have the trick for you, Link. Try and beat this giant ball of magic. I'm like, I think I know exactly what to do, sir.
I
still
dodge
call
it.
him sir. He's the Lord of Darkness, and I'm going to show him respect.
Just have a little fucking respect. That is all my thoughts on Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past before we get to the real thoughts. No, I mean the conclusion.
The real thoughts. The real. I did try and think of some cons, not to give away my verdict too soon. I do like, generally speaking, like the light world, which is the first third of the game. The light world is like fairly open. I think only, aside from Death Mountain, you can pretty much, after you rescue Zelda that first time, you can pretty much go wherever you want. You can't go into all the dungeons, but you can go into all the areas of Hyrule, I feel like.
Yeah.
But then when you get to the Dark World, it does like get super linear really quick. Because I think you have to go to that first dungeon first.
You can only go to a couple places until you get this next tchotchke, and then you can.
Because I think even the first dungeon is where you get the hammer, and I think exploring the rest of the Dark World is prevented by all these little pegs that you can only put down with the hammer.
You got to turn them into nipples.
That's right. They do look like little nipples. I keep dropping my pen. I'm sorry.
Good tape.
But also, I mean, as you explore later in the Dark World, there's all these heavy rocks you can't lift. It gets a little frustrating that the Dark World is very segmented, whereas the Light World is very open when you start playing it. It's one of my few criticisms, but I remember like when I played it the first time, I remember wanting to get to the village because I loved Kakariko Village so much in the Light World. I wanted to see what the dark version of it was, and I was really frustrated that I could not get there directly. There's all these sort of roadblocks choking you from getting to that spot. So it drives me a little crazy, and I think this is the beginnings, finally broken with Breath of the Wild and A Link Between Worlds before it, like of the linearity starting to creep into Zelda of no, you have to go this route and you have to go in this order of dungeons. I mean, they do number the dungeons. There are a few that you can sort of wiggle around and like go to another dungeon first.
If you wanted to.
But I mean, you have to like play the game 13,000 times like me to figure out what that is.
When like I'm here.
I go to the fourth dungeon first, by the way, in the Dark World. I go to because I want to get that upgrade to my sword first.
Can't do that.
Gotta get the Titan's Mitt.
I'm here for a good time. So if you tell me this is the dungeon I play first, I assume there's a reason. Like I'm gonna get something there that'll help me at the next thing, and usually that's true. Although that doesn't mean that's always the case. But I do feel like. Yeah, you're like, oh, now you have the Titan's Mitt, and you can lift these fucking huge rocks, and then you can go over to this place. That's just items, man. It's tchotchkes. That's the tchotchke life.
Those
that
little bits and
life.
bats. I don't think I have much else. I mean, I do love that the dungeons are like starting to get delineated, but they're only sort of aesthetically delineated. Otherwise, they're kind of... I think the water dungeon and the ice dungeon are the only ones that are actually like, this is an elemental area. But otherwise, Misery Mire isn't particularly swampy. It's just got slime on the walls in the decor of the actual dungeon.
Yeah. Which one's Misery Mire?
I think that's the 6th one.
Okay.
You have to use the duck to get to that. Go into the desert to get that portal and get into the swamp.
Get in that swamp.
Get in that Dragmire. That's where you do your Dragmire show.
That makes sense.
DJ.
Now.
What? What did you think of the item with which we were reviewing in this episode?
That's not how this goes.
I translated from Japanese back into English in the spirit of The Legend of Zelda.
Let me go ahead and list my complaints. This is very difficult in places.
Yeah.
I complain about the slashing mechanic already, which only is really a problem at the very beginning when you're already like a little weakling. Because as you like, if you get hit, so what? You've got hearts, you'll figure it out. But like when you have like 3 hearts, you're like, God damn this!
I can hear Angry DJ trigger warning of Angry DJ playing a video game.
It's always
that guy.
I hit that.
You saw that, right? You saw me hit the guy, right? Yes, DJ. I saw
you. I should reiterate now. I've gotten much better. I used to get grounded from the Nintendo when I was a child because I would get so mad, and they're like, "Why are you doing this? This is supposed to be fun." And I'd be like, "It's called a game.
I'm playing with power."
And this is of no fault of the game at all, but losing my progress was very anger-inducing. I was very upset.
You had me like Columbo trying to figure out like, oh, well, maybe did he save?
I definitely was using the rewind feature when this happened. So I feel like
you rewound all the way back to the beginning of your game.
Well, I guess. I don't know what happened. It was clearly like a glitch, but it's still, I was like,
that is annoying. I mean, I had a minor version of that during the Turtle Rock dungeon which is the penultimate dungeon. And I beat it and I was like, done for the day, and turned off my game and like closed my session in the Super Nintendo app or whatever they would call it on Switchland. And I was like, and the minute I did it, I was like, no, I beat that dungeon, which is probably one of my least favorite dungeons. I was like, oh my God. And knowing I had to go back and beat it again the next day was annoying.
I can't really hold that against the game.
No, that's my stupidity. That was just me being dumb.
Yeah, same with mine. I was upset at the game, but not reasonably. You know what I mean? Like, it's just that was the subject of my ire.
I still think you should write into 1991 Nintendo and let them know about the error. Just see what they can do.
Dear Nintendo of America.
Circa 1991 specifically. If you get this to them, that would be really appreciated.
Can you please send this to not your current address? The story is pretty convoluted. It's a Super Nintendo game. There's maybe too many things. I like a tchotchke as much as the other one, but I feel like most of these things are only a problem because I was on a time crunch of sorts, where we wanted to record this. I didn't want to wait too long, and I wanted to get through it. If it were playing for enjoyment, I think it'd be a different case. Because if you're playing a game, generally speaking,
did you get everything? Did you get all the items?
I think so.
Okay. I know there's some that are optional, but I mean, if you're playing it for the first time, you don't know what's optional, what's not.
Yeah. I mean, and I was also just doing whatever the walkthrough did. So if he got everything, and I got everything.
Sheep, follower, not a leader, follower.
Yeah, and I also don't. I will say that is not the most fun way to do that. It is a good way to get through a difficult portion, but fun. It's more fun. It's a puzzle. That's the thing. It's it is a action puzzle game, and that is really fun thing about Zelda. But if you're it can be very time consuming if you can't figure it out right away. And that's if you're just doing it, I'm going to play as far as I can get for the next hour or whatever, that's fine. But if you're I have to finish this game to talk about it, it is a little bit it's not that kind of It's not that fun.
It is a weird world that we live in, that you have an assignment to beat a video game, and if you could do it by Tuesday night, that would be ideal.
Right.
It is.
Yeah.
It is an odd experience.
We did already delay once because I was like not even close too.
I'm on a time crunch.
Yeah.
I gotta defeat Ganondorf Dragmire.
Right.
Toot sweet.
And I'm not. And I should like fully admit I am not like super good at this game or video games in general. And I think that's not something to hold against the game. Like, because I think they did an amazing job. To get to my verdict, Your Inner Child is not an idiot. This game rules. They did so much. You can tell this team that built this game, like, I don't know anything about it, but like they were pumped. They were like excited to throw new things in. They were excited to make these kind of narrative twists where you think you're done, or they're doing it. Oh, you saved Zelda. Like, it is so much fun. There's so many elements that are like interesting and weird. This game is very weird. Like the whole Dark World thing is super weird, and I say that in a completely enjoyable way. It's like, what the fuck? But you know, and like all the mechanics. Again, maybe there's too many tchotchkes, but like all of the tchotchkes are pretty fun. I love a mirror dimension. I love the fake princess at the end. That's actually a weird. Was that Agamemnon? Was that who was?
No, that was just the boss of that enemy.
Yeah, the boss of that. Yeah.
And she's hinted at the beginning of the game, like just casually by a guy in Kakariko Village who'd be like, hey, you know, this house we live in used to be a hangout for thieves, and the guy who ran it was named Blind, and he hated sunlight. And then when you go to that place in the Dark World, that you try and take that girl outside as she requested. I don't know what her grand scheme was, Hannibal Lecter, but it's like, oh, you want to go outside? Let's go there now. And she's like, oh, maybe we shouldn't go outside because the sun lives there. I'm like, well, you're the one with a sun allergy, Diane Keaton, so you asked to go here. And
then it turns into
if you take her into a room that has like sunlight pouring in, she turns into the boss, and you fight her.
Anyway, that is
a fun twist.
It's not a perfect game, but it is really fun, and I think like I would go back and play this game again, absolutely, especially without being on a time crunch. But I will say, this seems very difficult to just figure out. Like some of these things, I'm not sure how you would figure that, because there's no clues to some of the things. Some of it's pretty obvious, but some of it is like, you know, throw fairy dust on that thing and then it will give you this item that you need to get forward. Like, how the fuck would I know that? Like, you just have to
which one's that one?
I might be making that one up, but like there's a couple of things that seem like necessary items that you get in a very weird way, like that medallion thing that we were talking about. Is like,
right,
how I don't know if I would ever figure that out. I'd be like, it can't be done. That's probably what I did when I was little, because I don't know.
Luckily, like, I'm a very explorer. Like, when I play these Zelda games, like, I'm always, I want to explore as much as possible. Like, even in between, like, my thing is, I never want to go to a dungeon until I absolutely have to, until I've actually exhausted all my options. And usually that means like getting an object in a dungeon, and then when I leave that dungeon, I'm like testing it on all these puzzles I've seen when I've been exploring. And then when I'm like, well, I guess I can't do anything, on to dungeon number 3.
You do also learn to recognize things. They're like, that thing looks funny. And then you just go through your items that you have and be like, what if I read the book of Mudora in front of it? And you're like,
right,
nothing happens. Okay. Well, you know, I mean, then you just try shit. So I mean, yeah, if you're being a little bit more exploratory, like you said, you can sort of do some of that stuff. But some of those, like, again, that was more the time crunch. But anyway, Your Inner Child is not an idiot. What do you say?
Yeah. I mean, I was just going to say, like, when you encounter that ring of stones, like, I'm the kid who's like, oh, this sign says don't throw anything into my ring of stones.
Yeah, right.
Obviously, I need to throw something into this ring of stones. But otherwise, there's nothing to do in that little corner of the map. It is a weird, awkward... If you're not as exploratory as I am, you would overlook that, and then you'd get to Turtle Rock and be like, wait, what am I supposed to do? And I mean, that is actually one of my main cons of the game, is that there are a lot of little things. The Ice Rod is another one, not to go back to Turtle Rock, but the boss of Turtle Rock requires that you have the Ice Rod to defeat him. The last guy who told you to get the Ice Rod is Sahasrara after the first dungeon, the very first dungeon. He's like, there's something in the corner of Lake Hylia that you should pick up. It's like very vague and easily like forgotten. And I can't imagine being like the fuck up who's like, shit, I can't defeat this 3-necked turtle now because I don't have the ice rod. That being said, obviously, since I play this game every year and have every enemy memorized, I love this game. This is a great game. I think it takes a lot of what was done in the original game, which was a lot of exploration and environments and puzzles like that, and expands on them fantastically, creates a much more lived-in world, takes elements from Zelda 2, like towns and magic, and incorporates that into the original game's like sort of template. I think there are a lot of things it does that it introduces into the series that were like perfected in later games, but it's still like a really fun game. It's a lot of fun. It looks great. I think Super Nintendo games in general hold up really well, which is why every indie game that comes out now looks like a Super Nintendo game. It's one of my favorite games of all time, if not my favorite game of all time. Your Inner Child is not an idiot because I'm not an idiot. Why would I say my favorite game is a stupid game? It's
Counterpoint.
Great.
I do like that this game rewards exploring. Maybe not like always directly, but if you go talk to everyone,
which is very much my thing. It's like, I haven't talked to this third townsperson yet. Excuse me.
Yeah. And if you're like trying to like get through the narrative of the game, that can sort of be frustrating, right? Because you're like, I don't know what I'm,
I think Zelda games in general are one of the few games that like on a time crunch, it's really hard to do because it is so, even the most linear ones are very much they reward, going into those little, cracks and crevices in the map that the story may not take you on, but if you search around, you will usually be rewarded. I absolutely love it for that. And, I'm a person who loves talking to townspeople only in games. I never want to talk to actual people in life because what I like about games is that they'll say one or two things depending on if I found their child in a cave or if I still am waiting to find that child in a cave. They'll either say, please find my child, or thank you for finding my child. Here's a piece of heart, which makes no sense, which is if you encounter that in real life, you'd be like, oh my God, why do you have a piece of heart?
Call the authorities.
First off, where's the rest of this heart? No, I absolutely love this game.
I think even the dungeons though they're essentially all puzzles, right? Like they're all mazes with puzzles within them, and so when you're trying to get through the story or you're trying to like on the time crunch like you're like, okay, you need to go left and then you need to push this up and then you need to go left and then you need to go to this room first, get the key there. But like if you're just jumping into this dungeon like I did on the the first part of it, I'm like, I don't know, I'll go over here. And then you're like, oh, I can't go through that. Okay. I go back here and you're like, oh, this skull guy's here. I guess I'll fight him. And then, you're like, how do I get at this door? You just kind of like fuck around and then you figure something out and then you're like, okay, there's nowhere else to go. So there's got to be something going on in this. You know what I mean? It's not the
And it is very satisfying when you are able to figure it out yourself.
Yes.
And it's not, it's a Super Nintendo game. Usually it's kill all the guys in this room and the button will appear. But it is very satisfying when you are able, I mean, like me throwing my sword into that woman's fountain, Your Honor. It is very satisfying when you stumble upon one of those moments. And I think Zelda especially early Zelda is really good at that. And with Breath of the Wild, it feels like it's gotten back to that a lot more than it did in some of the later iterations.
What do you think, everybody? Email us, yourinnerchildisanidiot@gmail.com. You can call us or text us at 615-576-0525. Leave us a message, text message. Let's look up our patrons. Baby, don't just type patrons into Google. It's going to be like, what are you talking about?
You need something?
Let's see. Who should be first? Let's do...
Travis Vance, he was in your story today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We want to thank our patrons, including Karen Curd,
Heather Tuggle,
Travis Vance,
Demons Illustrian,
Jonathan Day,
Captain Jean-Luc Picard,
Lindsay Nell,
The Hands of Fate,
Dan McIntyre,
Jackson has an unhealthy obsession with Damon. I'm flattered, but also supremely uncomfortable.
The Elusive... Is that the next person? I'm flattered, but extremely uncomfortable.
One of our new patrons.
The Elusive fan, Gromkin.
And, of course, shit on the Cartouche, exclamation point.
The supreme ruler of this podcast.
Josh Frigo.
Dramatically plays hot dog.
Hizoner the mayor.
Beth Surmont.
David Mort.
Just Cuz.
Scalfasaurus. Are we getting the...
Dr. Malcolm's Heaving Bosom.
Flawless. Particle Man.
T. Smith.
T. Smith was just texting me about She-Devil right before I hopped on this recording. So I doff my cap to you, T. The Zesty.
Jeremy Powlen.
And, of course, Larissa Maestro.
Thank you all very, very much for supporting. If you'd like to support the show like them, patreon.com/your inner child is an idiot. Why don't you take us out with some lore? Could you recite the what's a family tree or something? What's something ridiculous?
Family tree? Well, actually, Zelda's family tree is really easy because all the women in Zelda's family tree are all named, you guessed it, Zelda. For some reason, they all name the girls in the royal family Zelda. So.
What's your go-to Link name?
Oh, this one's really funny. It's kind of an inside joke. I name him Link.
Oh, like from Rhett and Link, the YouTubers?
Yeah, that one. Rhett and Link. Actually, you know what? I will say this.
Richard Linklater.
My brother, he played A Link to the Past when we were Utes, and he named his character Ormlu in A Link to the Past, and that was the name of the brother in my erstwhile webcomic. So
that's right. And did
Doffs
you name your
Ormlu.
Link Truford?
No, of course it was still Link. Rules are rules. Like, what are you talking about? Here, I'll give you an example of me being Damon. This is a very Damon playing Legend of Zelda. At the beginning of the game, when your uncle says, you stay here, I need to go to the castle. When I first played this game, I literally stayed in bed and said, he'll be back. Right? He's probably the hero of the game, and I just sort of follow along and see him do things, maybe.
You're like, after a while,
or maybe news gets back to the house while I remain in bed about all the pendants and various crystals he's retrieved.
Maybe someone will
what's
bring me
wrong
pancakes.
with me? It's like I've never played a video game before. Get out of bed. He just said no.
I do still fall for the because like you can. There's no time on this game, right? Like you can
absolutely not.
You have a dungeon to go to, and I'm always like, I gotta get.
When Zelda screams and she's like, "They're invading the sanctuary,"
yeah.
I'm like, "Ooh, I gotta get over there." I'd hate to leave her in a lurch. Maybe I could catch her and stop the game from progressing. Tell her to just skip the whole Dark World section and get Zelda. Hey, soldiers, back off. Some of you take 2, 3, maybe even 4 hits. I can handle it.
If I had only not dawdled so much.